The views reflected by any of the guests may not reflect the views of the podcast host. Some topics may be difficult for some listeners. Proceed at your own risk. This podcast does not replace psychotherapy or advice and is for entertainment purposes only. Today we hear from Chris Firebaugh. He shares his experience with having stage 3B skin cancer and the lessons that taught him. He also talks about his love of music and the martial arts and how that all integrates together. You don't want to miss this. We'll be right back. Hopeology, stories of hope, healing, and resilience. I'm your host, Christina McKelvey. Today, we're going to be speaking with Chris Firebaugh. Chris, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Thank you. How are you?
Oh, good. We're both in the midst of winter, but all right. So tell me, you and I know each other, but I actually did not know this particular story. And so I'm curious, tell me a little bit about you, and particularly, your journey with skin cancer, because that's, you wanted to share your story about that experience. And I actually did not know about that.
Sure. Well, obviously, my name is Chris Firebaugh. I pretty much grew up in Texas. Family was from the Midwest. But I'm sort of a mixed race kind of guy. Part European, part Middle Eastern, or Afghanistan in particular. So pretty much grew up in Texas. I'm very attached to the Southern culture and hospitality, and I kind of tend to use yes sir, no sir in my conversations with people just because that's how you're brought up down there. And I moved to Arizona about the age of 20 years old in March of 1990, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I moved to Arizona with my grandparents, who actually raised me. They were basically the World War II generation. So I was kind of always different than the other kids around me because of my parents being quite a bit older.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of tended always to interact as a kid better with older people than people my own age. So I've always been kind of odd duck around people my own age. So I was involved in school with music mostly. I was in orchestra, played violin pretty much from junior high school through most of high school until I decided it wasn't cool and going to help me pick up girls. So I kind of quit a little bit because of that.
The violin was, I love the violin and the fiddle, which is there a difference?
Yeah. The difference is how you hold them. Like the violin, you tend to hold the violin up higher and you kind of cradle it with your chin. And the fiddle, like the average, I guess what you call fiddle playing, they hold it in a lower position, more at shoulder level as opposed to chin level. And they're both, I was a violin player as opposed to fiddle player. I mean, I did learn how to play Cotton Eye Joe, but I didn't play it in a very country fashion. It was more, like I said, I was more schooled in the Mozart, Bach kind of music than I was in orchestra. They didn't have that type of violin training in school in Austin, even though it was Texas. It was purely classical music.
Okay. Oh, so you moved to Arizona when you were 20. Is that when you got skin cancer? Circling back to...
No, so being part Middle Eastern, I've always had kind of a dark complexion, and I did spend any free moment I had, no matter what time of year it was, at the pool growing up. From the age of like 12 onward, I was at the pool as a religion. I mean, I just love water. So I think it was about 26 years old, and there was I was going to a martial arts class in Tempe, Arizona, taught by Master Joe Salamone, who was my martial arts teacher and friend.
Yeah.
And there was a guy there by the name of Todd Winton. Todd Winton had just completed going to school to be a naturopath. And one day we were training, and I was wearing some shorts, and he noticed on my left leg, just slightly above my knee,
Mm.
on the inner thigh, just slightly above my knee, there was a mole.
Mm-hmm.
And he looked at it and he said, "Hey, Chris, that doesn't look good." And it had been itching and bothering me for the past year or so, about a year. And I thought, I didn't really think about it because
Mm-hmm.
I thought, well, a mosquito bit me. I just thought it was a mosquito bite, and I kept scratching it so it wouldn't heal because I kept messing with it.
Okay, so that was what you thought was happening, but then your friend Todd, who happens to be a naturopath or was going to school for being a naturopath,
Yeah,
noticed that it meets those ABC criteria.
yeah, yeah, it did. And so he got me in touch with some of his colleagues. A lot of the naturopaths are actually also Western medicine doctors, so they kind of do both. And so I
Mm-hmm.
actually went to a doctor that was associated with I want to say it's the Southwest School of Medicine there in Tempe, Arizona, I believe it is. And this doctor, they did like a biopsy,
Mm-hmm.
and they sent it in. And about 2 weeks later, it was I got a phone call on the phone, asking if I could come down, to
That's
talk
never
to
good.
them. Yeah, no, so I got on my mountain bike because back then all I did was exercise, and I rode my bike down to the appointment, and I'm sitting there. I think I'm like 26, 27 years old, 27.
Mm-hmm.
Worked out all the time, super healthy. Didn't drink, didn't smoke, none of that stuff. And walk in the room, the doctor takes his glasses off, and part of me is thinking, what on earth could this be about? Because I mean, I knew it wasn't good by his demeanor,
Mm-hmm.
but the furthest thing from my mind was skin cancer because I'm thinking, how does a guy with a natural darker complexion get skin cancer, especially at a place that's not exposed to the sun directly? A lot of my sun exposure wasn't on that part of my leg. You get a
Mm.
lot of exposure on your neck, your back, your face primarily. So he tells me I've got um, stage 3.8, he said, or basically stage 4 melanoma, that it was a pretty deep, what they call Breslow level.
Okay. Okay. So like,
And that,
does that mean, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but does that mean like deeper within the epidermis, like a few layers in?
yes,
Okay.
yeah, there's a scale and they measure it. It's called the Breslow level. And depending upon what that number is, it's basically their explanation of how deep the
Mm.
cancer has gone.
Okay.
So, he tells me I've got melanoma and he thinks it's pretty serious. And I'm just sort of at that point, I'm just sort of in a state of like, I really was kind of in shock, but not in shock. I was just sort of like, how could this be? I'm
Yeah.
part, I'm not, I think of people getting skin cancer at 50, 60 years old, fair skinned, fair complected people. So at that point, I found out I have cancer, no insurance. I have to figure out how to pay for the treatment.
Yeah.
And so at that point, I had to quit working because to get on access, you can't have any assets. So
And Access
it,
is Arizona's Medicaid program, just for our
y-
non-Arizona listeners.
yes, and thank you, Access, because I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Access. So,
Yeah.
um, so I got on that program after basically getting rid of my any of my material possessions that showed as assets.
Mm.
You can't have real income or assets on this. So I think about 2 months later, I finally managed to get on the program and start the whole process of getting treated
Okay.
for this. I basically went through a series of tests. They ran many tests on me. Uh, did a biopsy of my lymph nodes and found out, it was had in fact spread to the lymph nodes. And from there, they basically prepped me for a surgery, which was two surgeries actually. One to remove my lymph nodes on my left side of my
Uh-huh.
leg,
Mm-hmm.
and to actually do I believe it was a 6 inch in diameter incision of the area where the cancer was found.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went through that and was, you know, fairly involved. And then about after 2 weeks of recovery of that, and they started me on alpha interferon 2B, I believe it was. And an interesting thing to note, the doctor I had was from the Mayo Clinic, but I
Okay.
wasn't but I wasn't at Mayo at the time, and I attribute it probably to part of I had a very good doctor,
Hmm.
and he did the right thing to help me prolong my life because obviously 53 today, still here after so many years with
Yeah.
no other reoccurrences of skin cancer. But
And it was a very serious, I mean, all skin cancer is serious, obviously, but with melanoma, stage 4, and like you said, deep in the skin or epidermis,
yeah,
spreading to your lymph nodes. I mean, that's pretty
yeah,
scary. It must have been very scary,
you know,
or I would
I
be scared.
mostly I did have one day, one particular moment with what I was, with my grandmother who I called mom, and
Hmm.
there was a moment where I had fear, and it wasn't really like it was emotional for me for about 1 hour, literally
Mm,
about 1 hour of emotion about it, and I was with her, and I was just thinking about what if I left her, how
yeah.
how would she handle it, and I did have fear for a moment, but honest to God, during the whole process, I never thought about it. I never went to a negative place in my head during the whole process about what I was going through. I just accepted it and tried to be as happy as positive as I could be during the whole process.
Hmm.
Um, so basically, the treatments for about a year on this medication, which was pretty hard to handle. It made you feel like you were nauseous. You
Okay.
had the flu, and
Was it chemotherapy?
it's a type of chemotherapy, but it's
Immuno?
not. Yeah, but it was more intense. It
Okay.
wasn't. Nowadays, I think the treatments they have are a lot more advanced and don't have the same side effects like they used to. So I think they've advanced that field pretty. They made some good advancements in that field as opposed to back when I was doing it. In my hair, I did lose hair and all that, and I lost my appetite,
Hmm.
and I found it. You felt very run down and tired. It was about a year of exhaustion, and also too after about 10, it actually started affecting me emotionally, the
Hmm.
medication, because as I'm taking the stuff, it's affecting my thought processes and all that. It had an effect on me mentally because of the way the medication was doing to my system. Now, during that time, I attributed getting through it to my friend Dr. Todd, went naturopath, and down in Phoenix, Arizona. He gave me stuff to help me combat the side effects, its effect on my liver and stuff like that.
Okay.
And so that helped me get through it. I kept practicing martial arts. In particular, I just started focusing on Tai Chi, and I
Mm.
believe that kept my energy going during the whole process. I did that stuff every day.
Tell me a little bit more about the Tai Chi, like what Tai Chi is like for you or for an individual, and how, yeah, the connection between that and the positive thinking and being able to navigate
Well,
this.
I think Tai Chi can be done in many different ways. Uh, for me, the primary thing is moving meditation. It's a
Mm,
type of moving meditation. Typically, as you're doing Tai Chi, you're coordinating your breath and your body and your mind as one. You have to keep your focus of the movements. And while you're doing that, much like sitting and doing meditation, you basically keep out the outside thoughts because of your actions, because of the fact you're having to coordinate movement and breath together. There's no time to think about, oh, did I leave the stove on at home? It forces you to be present in order to do the form correctly.
it
And
forces you to be present.
yes,
Oh, I can see
yep,
where that would how that would carry over into everyday life. The more consistent you are with practicing Tai Chi, forcing yourself to be present, how that almost becomes like second nature or natural for you.
I've done it long enough to where the aspect of doing Tai Chi, I can never forget it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't practice it enough, the benefits that you gain, you will lose those to a degree. Uh, my blood pressure is low today, and I attribute that to Tai Chi. I mean, I'm about a 340-pound, 50-pound guy, and my blood pressure is that of a 27-year-old.
Okay.
But that's due to doing Tai Chi and being able to calm yourself down because you have the tools. Tai Chi teaches you the tools in order to calm yourself down. It enables you to control your breath better, and I think it was keeping my energy up during a process that was really draining.
Yeah.
And it gives you a sense of, when you're doing it, you feel a sense of purpose in what you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
and the connection to it, and you're always striving to get better at it. So you always have a goal, and the goal is a positive goal. It's about self. You know, for me, Tai Chi is primarily a moving meditation. It's a physical exercise as well. It's a gentle exercise, and if you do it every day, you gain great benefits. I hate to say this, but I haven't been doing that in quite a while. But I definitely intend to get back to it.
Let's delve a little bit more into, you just mentioned the goals about self. What does that mean?
Well, self. Okay, I think of to me, we're on a spiritual journey,
Mm-hmm.
and it's easy to get lost in the sea of life and get bogged down by negative thoughts and chase things around us that are outside of ourselves. And I guess what it reminds me of, the greatest accomplishments are things that can't be taken from you. Knowledge.
Mm.
That's the greatest treasure you ever have is knowledge of self and things you have learned and can teach others. That's basically, to me, a quick, short version of that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I do have to back up for a moment.
Okay.
I, I actually did start Tai Chi as a child. I had really severe asthma as a kid,
Mm-hmm.
growing up in Houston. And my uncle, Lyle, who was my first Kung Fu teacher, he, at the age of, I think it was about 10 years old, 9 or 10 years old, he started taking me to a Tai Chi class to help with my asthma. Within 1 year of doing Tai Chi, I no longer had asthma.
You no longer had asthma.
It got rid of it. I quit using inhalers and all that stuff. I mean, I use them again now because I'm not doing because I'm not doing Tai Chi. But yeah, I was hospitalized probably, oh gosh, as a child, I spent about 2 weeks in a oxygen tent because I think I was about 4 years. I was about 4 years old, and one night I woke up and just wasn't breathing, and I got rushed to the hospital with my grandfather and my uncle, and yeah, so I had really severe asthma growing up, but as soon as I learned how to do breath control and really the mind body spirit connection, even as a kid, as soon as I learned that, it it was gone. I did not have asthma until I let myself get out of shape and quit practicing. So I can definitively say it does take care of illnesses like that, for sure. Because my life before that, I was not a fit child because of the asthma. But after learning Tai Chi, that all changed. It really did change my my physical being to some degree.
It sounds like Tai Chi
improved
was,
my health.
yeah. Oh, it sounds like Tai Chi was very I'm losing the word too, but important and just
therapeutic.
therapeutic. Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
And so, you were um, getting treatment. You were getting, was it immunotherapy you were receiving or?
I believe that's the terminology for it,
Okay.
immunotherapy. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So you're receiving immunotherapy. You were feeling really sick. The medication was, kind of altering your mental state. You're able to navigate a lot of it because of Tai Chi. Staying in the present, some of that positive thinking. What else contributed to being able to kind of push through your treatment? And how long were
Ah,
you in treatment for?
um, about 1 year, but I actually jumped ship on the treatment at month 11.
Okay. Okay.
The reason is it started affecting me emotionally. I felt maybe like I was going a little bit. mm, I felt like my mental stability wasn't great
Mm,
because my emotions started. I started losing control of my emotions. Like, say, if you're watching a funny movie and something was, that would make you chuckle, I would laugh like it was the greatest joke I've ever heard in my life. Or, you say you're watching E.T. and you watch, I hope there's spoiler alert here, where E.T. dies and you get sad. I
hmm
would get extra sad. It would make me just feel terrible.
mm,
So part of my brain said, this isn't good. And I did not like, I can handle physical maladies, but when my mind starts getting affected, I could not do it any longer. I just couldn't do it.
hmm
So, even though I had 4 weeks ago, I'm like, no, I'm absolutely done because I wanted to I did not want to emotionally, I didn't want to feel like I was going crazy, for lack of a better way of saying it. It's just emotionally unstable. I did not like that feeling.
I'm curious where you would have been if you didn't do Tai Chi, like if you would have been even more affected emotionally, since you were mentioning you felt emotionally unstable, but at the same
Well,
time, Tai Chi was helping you.
I think it kept me out of depression because at that point my career was essentially dead, and I had nothing really to do with my time at all, except be go through these treatments. I couldn't work. I was too sick all the time. So the only thing I was able to do was attend martial arts classes. But being
Okay.
involved, also I was involved with other people. My teacher Joe, my friend Todd Winton, Dr. Winton. Being around everybody and just having that type of social connection with people on a positive level, doing something
Oh,
positive.
I see.
At that point in my life, as I was going through all this, I basically started shifting to the thought processes to maybe I should teach martial arts because it was helping me get through a difficult time in my life when I've lost everything professional and was kind of over,
Mm.
and I thought to myself, well, I want to do this because this is helping me get through this difficult time, and I thought, well, that's a positive thing and it's probably what I need to focus my life on at the time. And so I think that at that point martial arts became more of a focal point in my life and gave me a purpose. It gave me purpose.
It gave you purpose. I like that. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And having purpose gives someone hope. And when someone has
Yes.
hope, they feel they can move forward and they have that
Yeah.
resilience.
We all. I think that's a thing we all need in life is the feeling of purpose.
Hmm
Because without the feeling of purpose, we're just ships adrift on the ocean with no destination in mind. Not that not that really you're ever going to reach a destination. The journey is the reason, not the destination. But it definitely gave me a something to strive for, to
hmm
improve at, and to it was something I started living. It started my whole life became about that. I actually started teaching kids after I recovered from the cancer. I started teaching preschool martial arts to little kids around the
Oh,
valley.
oh, that's
Yeah,
adorable.
yeah. I
Aw.
tell you what, it's harder. It's harder than it looks.
I used to be a preschool teacher for a few years, and yes, I believe you.
Yeah, yeah. So you understand what I'm saying.
hmm hmm
Yeah, I got into that. I also will have to say that another thing that did help me during the whole process was one night during the whole chemotherapy thing,
Mm-hmm.
a couple of my friends came by because I was pretty much just home all the time, and they
Right.
took me out. They took me out on the town to go sing karaoke, and I'd never done that before. And so I was at a bar in Scottsdale, Arizona called Doctor Feelgoods, which no longer exists. I
Dr.
think it's called.
Feelgoods.
Yeah, it was in Scottsdale, like South Scottsdale. I think off of I want to say McClintock, and it was just a dive bar. And they took me in there, and I they'd heard me sing, just messing around singing, and they thought, well, you might have fun doing this. So I put in a song. I think it was a duet with a friend of mine, to all the girls I've loved before, Willie Nelson and Julio Iglesias, or something like that.
Yes, yeah, it's a
And
good song.
and I messed up somehow and wound up doing both parts of the song. Everybody was laughing about it, and I was always a natural class clown, so I thought, oh, great, I can make people laugh by singing karaoke. So the next thing you know, I'm singing Hotel California and just off and running. So, I started doing that as well during that time period, and that did give me something to do other than just sit around. So I guess you could say it was karaoke, music, and Tai Chi to help me get through the whole process of what I went through. It kept my mind, it kept me from being too depressed about life at the time.
Well, let's focus more in on music. I interviewed your wife. She was my first podcast guest, Haley Park, and we talked a lot about music therapy, and so I think it'd be an interesting perspective to look from a different angle where you were receiving it. But let's,
Yes,
in a way, I should say. I mean, it have
right.
a.
No, very much so. I actually host karaoke today, and I can say that without a shadow of a doubt,
Hmm.
the people that come to the karaoke show, the typical person, does really love doing it. It makes them happy. They're performing, and you can take
Yeah,
a person who's never spoken public, who is awkward in front of a group of people as far as giving a presentation, but
yeah, yeah.
a few years of doing karaoke, that problem will go away. You won't have any problem talking in a room full of strangers because you're used to singing all kinds of different songs on a microphone. It removes stage fright and the anxiety a person might feel by speaking in front of people.
And
Because if you
so,
can sing,
uh-huh.
yeah,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead. Sorry. Oh, you go ahead.
Oh no, finish. It's okay.
Oh, I guess what I'm saying is I saw it bring a lot of people out of their shell, and I think once a person starts doing karaoke, it becomes a great outlet for them. Because music in itself is therapeutic. You can always think of your favorite song and how it makes you feel.
Hmm.
Well, when you're singing your favorite song, you're just getting even more of that feeling and the connection to the music. And we're all connected by music and sound. That's like you may like liver and onions, and I may hate it, but we may like the same song. It's a way for people to connect as well. I think,
Yeah.
and also karaoke in itself kind of tends to breed a community effect of people around it that do karaoke. They become friends with each other, and I've met a lot of great people through karaoke for sure, and
Hmm.
made a lot of friends through it. And I would say if it wasn't for karaoke, I would have not met my wife at all. That's the reason I met her initially.
Oh, you met her through karaoke. And how many years after your cancer journey was that?
Oh, did I met my wife?
Through karaoke.
Gosh, I'm gonna say it close to 20 years.
Okay, okay.
Close to it. Close to it. Yeah, I met her in 2018, and karaoke. I think I first went to a karaoke bar. I want to say it was 2008
Hmm.
ish. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And then I started hosting karaoke. I think a couple years afterwards. After that, or a year and a half afterwards.
And you do other things with music too, besides hosting karaoke, correct?
Yeah. Yes. You know, I when I was in high school, I played a violin, and basically I grew up in Austin, Texas as well. And the day Stevie Ray Vaughan died, I actually bought a guitar because I love Stevie Ray Vaughan so much. And I started playing guitar a little bit, but when my grandfather passed away, I think in '92 it was, I quit playing guitar, and then I
Mm.
didn't start again until my mother passed away in 2015. So I decided when I was, a kid, my parents told me music was the thing that I'm best at, and that's why they put me in the orchestra in the first place. And they thought that was my path, I believe. And
Mm.
but I think that I did not realize that. I did not focus on it enough. His death made me go from loving music to not. I I became
Your
very negative.
grandpa's death.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I took it really hard, and it became pretty negative from it. And that was when I was 21, and I did not react. I did not handle it too well for the most part. As far as just personally, I let myself go at that point a bit. Just I became very angry and bitter
Mm-hmm.
about everything, just because him leaving was just not what I had in mind. you know, and
Yeah.
yeah, so I wound up basically taking care of my grandmother, if you will, after he died because she was alone,
Mm-hmm.
and we we only had each other at the time. I had an uncle that lived in Arizona as well, but he had a family, so he couldn't be there as much as he wanted to.
Yeah.
But yeah, so basically, when he died, I quit playing music. But when my grandmother died in 2015, I started thinking about my dreams when I was younger, and I really wanted to be a musician. When I was living in Austin, that became my dream.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to play guitar, quote unquote, be a rock star. But you know, I I kind of quit for many many years until she died. Then all of a sudden, I thought to myself, well, I was 45 at the time.
Okay.
I thought to myself, well, maybe I need to pay attention to what they were trying to tell me. They're no longer, my parents were no longer here.
Yeah.
So the only thing I could do at the time was focus on the advice they gave me when I was younger. So I thought, well, the only way I can respect my family really is by fulfilling what their dreams and wishes for me were. They told me to play music, so I decided gonna go get a guitar and start doing it again.
Hmm.
Yeah, so about a year after that, I wound up playing in a backyard party with a couple of friends of mine in Phoenix, and one of them used to work at Yamaha Recording Studio in LA once
Mm-hmm.
upon a time,
Mm-hmm.
and he told me, he says, "You're pretty good on the guitar," and I'm like, "I can play maybe three songs," and he started working with me, and we started uh, just playing music together. And the next thing you know, we had a band going, and that went on for gosh a number of years, and I got better and better at it.
Mm-hmm.
Finally wound up having a monthly gig down at a bar called Gallagher's in South Phoenix, and I guess I played there for about 6 or 7 years on the patio, and that's how I started playing live music. And I met my wife because she was doing a she also does live music. She was doing a show at a bar called the Legacy, which is a golf resort.
Okay. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, they do like weddings there and all kinds of different events. But it's a nice place, and they needed someone to come run sound for her. So I got the call from a friend of mine who was supposed to do it, that he couldn't do it. And he asked me if I could fill in for him, and
Oh.
luckily that was me. So
Could he not do it because they were setting you guys up? Or was it just
oh,
happenstance?
no happenstance.
Oh, okay. Okay.
All happenstance. Yeah, that wasn't a planned thing. It was just a thing where he bailed at the last minute and called me the day before.
So it just worked out.
Yeah, it
Hmm.
worked out.
Okay. So when you were diagnosed with cancer, going through that journey, Tai Chi, music. But it sounds like music and in a way also Tai Chi has been that consistent
Yes.
um that consistent healing practice for you.
Yes. Yep.
Hmm.
It definitely is definitely part of it. They were both have been my constants in my life that I was
Mm-hmm.
either doing one or the other,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I feel that at my age now that it's kind of time to get back to the Tai Chi thing as well and bring that back into my life because I definitely can tell that without if without I need it because it's good for my health because I've got some health issues related to going through all the cancer treatments I went through that
Mm.
developed later on as a result of the lymph nodes being removed. It caused some problems with my health and my immune system.
Okay.
So yeah, so definitely as I'm getting older and feeling the effects of age,
Yeah.
I definitely think Tai Chi is becoming a very important thing for me to do.
Mm. Yeah.
It's a general form of exercise on top of being a meditation.
And Tai Chi gave you that sense, like when you were teaching Tai Chi, it gave you that sense of purpose. And also
Yeah.
doing karaoke. And with purpose comes hope, with hope comes resilience, and with resilience comes healing.
Yes. Yeah. It sounds like something Yoda would say.
Ooh, Yoda. Oh, Yoda, yes.
Yoda. Yeah. Star
Uh,
Wars nerd here.
yeah, I'm afraid to say I'm not. I'm gonna get like chastised by the internet community.
Oh, that's okay. Well,
I
there's two types of people in the world. Either you're Star Wars or Star Trek, or none of it.
I'm none of it. I actually get Star Wars and Star Trek confused,
That's
to the
blasphemy.
dismay of my father-in-law. I do like Lord of the Rings though. I think I'm more like, would that be fantasy? I guess fantasy. See,
Yeah, that's fantasy.
well, you know, Chris, I'm noticing, like I think the theme is when you have that sense of purpose and
Yeah.
doing something consistently, excuse me, and it's bringing you joy, it helps with that resilience and that hope. It can help you, maybe not, because you mentioned the medication was affecting a lot of your mental state, but at the same time, it gave you a sense of purpose when you were doing Tai Chi. And so it didn't necessarily
Yeah,
negate a lot, but it, when you have that, it helps you navigate life a lot better.
it
And
did.
yeah, so it's like finding that sense of purpose, even if it's
I,
simple and
I'm
small.
I've never been a person that wants to be a 9 to 5 guy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like working in offices.
Yeah.
And at the time I was sort of doing that a little bit, but then I realized that working for yourself and doing things on your own was a bit more freeing. And after I got the cancer, I started realizing it made me realize that we're only here for a short amount of time. It
Mm-hmm.
put mortality in front of me. And having mortality put in front of me made me look at life as in a completely different way than I was before. I just saw life as work as much as you can, make as
Mm.
much money as you can, and not because I was materialistic, but just because that's what you did. That's what you did. And I think getting cancer made me abandon that path of life because I started thinking to myself, well, I have to say that I attribute cancer, in my particular case, the doctor I had, the naturopath doctor, I was asking him, what do you think caused me to have melanoma? And and he looked at me and he says, well, he took his glasses off. He goes, a lot of people say it's the sun. He goes, I don't say that. He goes, I don't see it that way, particularly in you. So a big question became, what caused me to have cancer? And I never had it again, or since then, I've never had melanoma ever again. And it just was something that came up. I had it, and then it was gone. I don't believe it was sun related myself because the part of my body I got it on is not exposed to the sun. So it makes me wonder if I will tell you that that after my dad died, I pretty much was in a dark place for quite a
Mm-hmm.
while.
Mm-hmm.
And it was Tai Chi that pulled me out of the dark place, but by the time I started doing it, I already had a problem going on and on my leg. So I often wonder if it was just depression and negativity that brought it on, because I definitely lost myself after my father died. I was so very lost.
Yeah.
Yep.
But then you got that hope back
Yeah, I found a
afterwards.
path.
You found a
I
path.
had no path. I started finding a path. Yeah, and it's been an interesting journey. Is finding the path and then trying to stay on the path. And staying on the path is harder sometimes than finding the path,
Yes.
because you look around you and everybody's doing this and this, and you're off here playing in the daisies, in your life. That's kind of how I can describe. I definitely don't usually fit in with a typical crowd of people because I just don't see things in the same way because of the cancer journey. It made me abandon how a typical person thinks about their life goals and what they're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
I became, I guess I started looking at life in a total opposite way as everybody else around me. And I think that was because I did not want to put expectations and stress upon myself, because I decided it was probably stress that helped me get cancer or attributed to it, possibly. And that may be the case or it may not be the case. That I don't know. That's not a scientific thing. That's just my opinion, of course. Yeah, so that is probably why after that I never really delved back into the 9 to 5. I tried, but I developed like a Hashimoto's, a thyroid condition, from the treatments and aftermath of all that. And I've been told a lot of people develop immune problems after going through cancer treatments, and that affected my ability to work full time job and to do the typical things a person does do. And I found out that my only really approach to survive was doing things that did not cause me a lot of stress in life. And so I looked for things to do that I felt like I was giving back to people, or at least doing things in a way that made myself happy. And I always found that if I'm making other people happy, I also in turn feel happy by making others happy, you know.
Yeah. Let's stop there, because I think that's an important, thing to note. You're feeling happy when you make other people happy. You're finding your purpose. I like to close with this question with everybody because, again, my podcast is called Hopeology. And you've answered, I feel, that you've answered this throughout the podcast interview. But what brings you hope?
What brings me hope? Hmm. I typically live day to day. That's my goal anyway. Day to day living. Don't look too far into the future and make each day the best you can make it, because you don't know what tomorrow is going to bring.
Being present.
In the present moment. That's the lesson I got. I've got a great friend in Phoenix, the Buddhist monk. Um, my friend Joe Salamone, the kung fu teacher. These things were taught by, pretty much both of them had the same thing to say. They're different. I think that's the wisdom of all sages and of all different paths. That is it. The truth is to be in the present moment is the highest goal you could obtain.
Mm.
And I try that as much as I can. I'm not perfect at it. And, it's I definitely think if you're in the present moment, everything will be as good as it can be because you're not thinking about tomorrow. Tomorrow is worry. You're always worried about what's going to happen tomorrow. And if you live day to day, it tends to lessen the effects of that particular stress. So I think try to figure out what you can do to create a more stress-free life for yourself, and that's all based on the individual. Everyone has different paths in life they must journey on. And I think find the path that is less stressful for you, because the stress and time we waste can't you can't get it back. Once your time is gone, it's gone. And if you've spent your whole life in a state of stress and suffering, essentially, then I feel like you've probably wasted your life a bit. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's better to be focused on the present moment, living day to day. And of course, we all have our own goals and things we want to achieve in life. Mine is I definitely would like to teach again, and I'd like to do more live music just because that's what brings me joy. But also karaoke, it brings other people joy, so I'll continue to do that, which uh, makes people happy. If I do a karaoke show and I look down and I see everyone's having a great time, it always makes me feel good about it. That's that's it. It's more that, because I make okay money at it, but I actually I hang on the fact that I see other people enjoying what's going on around me.
Mm-hmm.
That's my main motivation. Like if I do a show or there's no one there, it's not how much it affects me, it's how I see there's no one there really enjoying themselves. And I live for that.
Mm-hmm.
Other people around me having a good time, and I like to be involved, a participant in that if I can. That's pretty much, I feel like, my path in life.
Your path, walking, and the skin cancer was on your leg.
Yeah, that set me on the journey. That's what started me on this journey. It was the beginning of a new path in life. Cancer was a new beginning for me.
Yeah. And hopefully we all don't have to get cancer to figure out our path. But
right.
Finding our purpose, finding what brings us hope, finding what brings us joy can really help with any type of internal healing we need.
Yeah.
And it sounds like, Chris, that's what you got. That's what happened for you. And I really appreciate you sharing your story with me. And, it's really exciting. I can't wait to see, you continue with the live music, starting Tai Chi again, karaoke, and I am excited to see your path. And so thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for interviewing me. I appreciate you.
Yeah. I loved that interview. He really delved into the lessons that he learned from skin cancer and his purpose and his passion of music. You can find Chris hosting karaoke at Matt's Saloon in Prescott and Yavapai Cantina, also in Prescott. Thank you for listening to Hopeology. If you enjoyed today's show, please leave us a review. To learn more about us or listen to past episodes, you can find us on all your podcast streaming stations. If you are interested in being a guest, or if you have any feedback, please email us at hopeologypodcast@gmail.com. You can also support our show by clicking on the link in our show notes. Please also follow our Instagram page, Hopeology Podcast, and visit our website, www.hopeologypodcast.com.